Peyton is a 19-year-old with autism who was recently accused of terrorism. The real question is, how did this happen?
November 13th, 2015. FBI agents arrested a suspected terrorist after he sent bomb-making instructions to someone he believed to be a member of ISIS. The suspect? An 18-year-old named Peyton from Wattsville, Alabama. While an arrest like this would normally cause a sigh of relief, this one raised eyebrows when it was discovered that Peyton had been diagnosed with autism and attention deficit disorder. Can someone that functions at the level of an 8-year-old child and is unable to tie his own shoes be an alleged terrorist?
In a doctor's exclusive, we're joined by Peyton's father, Tony, and his lawyer, James Galini. And Tony, I want to ask you, how did this all ultimately go down?
They allowed him to have his laptop at school, but it started actually in their computer classroom at the school. And they had seen him looking at something. It was a documentary about ISIS. And he bought a book called Inside ISIS. And at that point, the school just turned around and never called me again, but called the FBI.
Were there any red flags as far as a tendency towards violent behavior? Or
No, none, never.
James, I want to ask you, as Peyton's attorney, where are things now and how legally did things evolve to the point where, you know, he was arrested?
It was the FBI from April of 2015 until November that approached Peyton online. And it was only the FBI that was communicating with Peyton during this entire experience. Peyton has never been in contact with anybody remotely connected to ISIS. ISIS has no idea who this kid is, and the fact that we're giving them more publicity by saying and connecting them in some way to Peyton is ridiculous.
So, James, I remember reading in the story as we were preparing for today that there were these multiple interviews of Peyton with law enforcement, and no parent, no lawyer, or no one was present.
Yes, and when they arrested him, FBI had a 4-hour interview without an attorney present. Peyton did not know what an attorney was during that interview. They had to try to explain it, and then they asked him to sign that he understood and waived his rights to one.
Can you tell us what Peyton's cognitive ability is?
He's had 3 IQ scores, and he's been right around an average of about a 57, and 70 is a cutoff for intellectually disabled in the state of Alabama.
So, okay, so I want to bring someone else in the conversation, but the first thing I just want to say is I am troubled that you had no idea as a father that this was going on. That's troubling to me from one perspective, but there's 2 sides to every story, and joining us now is former FBI agent Bobby Chacon, who, you're on the law enforcement side, and obviously law enforcement's job is to keep the country safe and to monitor online activities. So what kinds of things, just broadly, are you looking for when you're monitoring online activities?
You look for websites that are being visited, videos that are being viewed, statements that are being made on chat boards and things like that. So, you know, it's the typical things you would think of online activity that would lead a person to a certain ideology.
do certain keywords, do they track that?
Sure, there are tripwires that are set up that if people are keywords or key phrases, combination of words, technology is such that we can be clued in on things like that.
So Bobby, I just want to ask, would the investigation change from the perspective of the FBI if they learned that the individual that they're tracking has intellectual deficits, has autism, has any kind of mental deficit?
Yeah, it would change, but it wouldn't go away. We know that online recruiters, particularly in the sexual predators we know, and now we know from ISIS recruiters, that they sometimes look for people with reduced mental capacity that are easily persuaded. That could be, you know, they sometimes kind of reach out and try to judge these people. Can we get them to do something for us? Because they have this limited ability to kind of think outside the box or think in resistance terms.
At this stage, Peyton is under arrest. Where are things with his legal case right now?
He was found not guilty by reason of mental defect on September 8th.
Okay.
The state supplied forensic psychologist, well respected, had determined that he be found not guilty by reason of mental defect. The court took that recommendation, but Dr. King also, in his findings, gave his recommendation for what happens to Peyton afterwards. And he recommended that he be released to go home, that he posed no danger to himself, he posed no danger to the community, and the only stipulation that he recommended the court place on him was that he be supervised and monitored on the internet.